members of the board, Chancellor Lee, President Potter, Provost Heveron, family and friends, and of course, the great graduating class of 2012. Congratulations once again. Thank you for inviting me to join you today to celebrate your vision, your hard work, and your success. I'm also delighted to be here with you to honor the loved ones and friends who helped you reach this day, the people who believed in you and believed in your dream. When you made that decision to get a college or graduate level education, I know that you made a commitment to changing your daily lives for a while. Maybe you had to get up early in order to study, or maybe you went to bed later. Maybe you had to skip weekend activities. You had to buy all those textbooks. And you had to make some financial sacrifices in order to get where you are today. So I think this is a really good time to look around the room, because somewhere here in the Sacramento Civic Center are people who love you, people whose lives also had to change because of your commitment and your dream, and their hearts are bursting with pride right now. This might be a good time to thank them. I'm also happy to be here to celebrate the values that National University embodies, and particularly what President Potter mentioned, the value of lifelong learning. That's a value that's at the heart of the partnership between National University and the nonprofit agency that produces our program, A Way with Words. For those of you who haven't heard A Way with Words, it's about words and how we use them and why we say the things we do. And people call in from all over the world to talk about language. Now, sometimes we talk on the show about how English is a really weird language. In fact, I'd like to see a show of hands. How many of you speak a language other than English, in addition to English? Wow. Well, you know better than others that sometimes English is a really puzzling language. I mean, why is it that in English we drive on a parkway, but we park in where? The driveway. Why is it that in English our noses sometimes run and our feet smell? It's a crazy language. I'm betting that you're thinking, I'm happy as a clam to be here, getting my National University degree. But did you ever think about it? I mean, when's the last time you saw a clam that was really happy? English is a crazy language. In parentheses, I'll explain that one. The phrase happy as a clam comes from an older, longer phrase, happy as a clam at high tide. And so if the tide is high, you can't get to the clams, and they're happy. Nobody can take them. Nobody can dig them up. But over time, we shortened that phrase and forgot about it. I'll give you another example. In just a few minutes, you're going to be able to say, National University is my alma mater. But did you ever stop to think about what the term alma mater really means? Do you know where that term comes from? The term alma mater is Latin, and literally it means nourishing mother. The alma comes from the Latin alere, which has to do with nourishing. Those of you in the health sciences studied the alimentary canal, which nourishes us. And the mater is the Latin word for mother. You see it in English words like maternal and maternity, and the Spanish word for mother, madre. They share the same root. So when you say that National University is my alma mater, what you're saying is that National University nurtured your intellect, it fed your curiosity, and it gave you the kind of help that you needed to zero in on your professional goals and sharpen the skills that you'll use in your career. I think this is also a good time to reflect for a moment about those teachers who really made a difference for you. Maybe some of them are sitting here today. I'd like to tell you the brief story of the teacher of mine who really made a difference. And one reason I love this story is because I like to think of it as the story of my favorite failure. But don't worry, it does have a happy ending. When I was in college, I was an English major, but I thought it would be cool to study a classical language. I'd had some Latin in high school, so I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool to learn ancient Greek and read the Odyssey in the original? Find out what that's like? Well, what I found out is that ancient Greek is really, really, really hard. At least it was really hard for me. It has a whole different alphabet, a different grammar, all those dreary drills and exercises. I couldn't figure out how any little ancient Greek kid ever learned to talk. You know that old expression, it's Greek to me? It was. In fact, it was so hard for me that I was flunking the class. So at the very last minute, I waited as long as I could and then I dropped the class. But I promised myself that I would try again, and over the summer I found myself a tutor. He was an elderly man from Latvia, a retired professor of classics named Leonard Latkovsky, and he agreed to teach me Greek on Monday nights. Well, it turned out that Professor Latkovsky knew a whole lot of languages. He taught me Greek on Mondays. On Tuesdays, he taught somebody Italian. On Wednesdays, he taught Russian. On Thursdays, he taught Hebrew. I don't know what the guy did on Fridays. Maybe he rested. But he began teaching me Greek, and he taught me in a whole new way. He was passionate about finding connections between and among languages as diverse as Greek and Spanish and Hindi and Latin and Russian and English, because all of these languages spring from an older prehistoric mother tongue. They're all from the same linguistic family. They all have resemblances, if you can find them. It was a whole new way for me of studying language, looking for those connections between words that are hiding right there in plain sight, like we saw with the term Alma Mater. Well, this for me was thrilling. In fact, it was so thrilling that I ended up studying ancient Greek with the guy for 12 years. That's the happy ending. But as we studied together, sometimes our lessons were interrupted by phone calls. A Romanian family had just moved to the area and needed an interpreter, or a Turkish woman was in town and for a heart transplant and needed a translator. One time he got up in the middle of a lesson, answered the phone, and spoke in a language I didn't recognize and came back and said, "Polish woman is having baby, I have to leave." But as you can imagine, I always wondered how many languages the guy spoke. And so over the years, from time to time, I'd say, "Professor Latkovsky, how many languages do you speak?" And every single time, he would dismiss my question with a chuckle and a shrug. And he would say, "There are many languages I do not know." And I found that so frustrating at first. I would get so frustrated with that answer. There are many languages I do not know. But what I finally realized was that even in that moment, he was teaching me. He was teaching me that no matter how accomplished you are, no matter how much you've learned, there's always something more to learn. That no matter what career you choose, if you want a rich and rewarding and full life, you gotta stay curious. And this is another reason that I'm so delighted to be here among kindred spirits in this university community, and to be among people who understand, as you do, the joys of what President Potter mentioned, lifelong learning. In fact, it's why I love looking at the Latin motto of National University, discendo vivimus, literally through learning we live, discendo, like the English word disciple, the person who learns, and vivimus, we live, like vivacious, or Spanish for live, vivir. Discendo vivimus, we live through learning. One other thought that I wanted to share with you about trying to make sense of the challenging world in which we live today. Just last month, the U.S. Census Bureau announced that we'd reached a milestone that is nothing short of monumental. They announced that sometime in March of this year, the population of this world surpassed 7 billion people. 7 billion people. Now, there's a website that's helpful in trying to get some perspective on this gigantic number. It's called 100people.org. And what they've done is to take all that statistical data and crunch it in a way that makes it possible to imagine the world as just 100 people. 100 people representing all the diversity, all the different percentages and populations. Let me share just a few highlights. If the entire population of the world were represented by just 100 people, 60 of those people would be from Asia. Of those 100 people representing the global community, 33 would be Christian, 22 would be Muslim, 14 would be Hindu, and the rest would follow other religions or have no religious affiliation. Now listen to some of the language diversity in our modern world. Just a few examples. Of those 100 people, 12 would speak Chinese, 5 would speak Spanish, another 5 would speak English, 3 would speak Hindi. And now when it comes to education, this is really interesting. When it comes to education, the majority of those 100 people in our global community are going to have some level of primary or secondary schooling. But in this global village of 100 people, do you know how many of them would have a college or university degree? Not 40 out of 100, not 30, not 20, not even 10. Only 7. Only 7 people. That's what you've done. From a global perspective, that is an amazing accomplishment. You are part of that elite 7% of the world population. Think about what that means. It's an amazing achievement. These days, I've been rereading the work of that great American poet, Robert Frost. And it occurs to me that the closing lines of one of his poems are particularly appropriate for what we're celebrating today. You may recognize them. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere, ages and ages hence, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. You took that road less traveled when you set out to join the elite 7% of those people in the world with a college education. And you know what? That will make all the difference. So please accept my congratulations, my admiration, and my heartfelt thanks for letting me be a part of this wonderful moment in your lives.